Welcome to Couple Bull. My name is Michael Dunham. I'm the Director of Planning, and with me today is Patrick Fontana, founder of Fontana Financial Planning.
Cheers, Michael.
Cheers. Patrick, today I want to talk about the question, why should somebody consider Roth? So to start, can you just explain kind of what Roth is and what are the benefits of having money that is Roth money?
Sure. So I like kind of the example of looking at buckets. If you've got two buckets and you could put money in this bucket and it can grow and you will pay income taxes on anything that's in that bucket. And you got the other bucket, the tax-free bucket, the Roth bucket. You could put money in there and it can grow and you don't pay taxes on anything that's in that bucket. So I love the Rothify idea of putting more money in Roth. For today, you're sacrificing potentially a tax break, but in the long run, a lot of tax-free growth. And so we're making a concerted effort to get more money in the Roth bucket personally and for clients. And it just makes sense to Rothify your balance sheet as much as you can within reason.
Mm-hmm. And so here in 2025, there's really two avenues that most people have to be able to put money away into a Roth account. So one is 401k through an employer, which you can do up to $23,500 if you are 49 or younger. You can do $31,000 if you are above the age of 50. And there's a new special super catch up for those turning 60 to 63, where they can do even more than that. The other opportunity is what's called a Roth IRA, or if you're above the income limit and you have the ability to do so, a backdoor Roth IRA, $7,000 under 50 and $8,000 above 50. So a couple options as far as how to fund. One thing I thought may be helpful is to just walk through an example of how that works. One question we get sometimes is, $7,000 doesn't seem like that big of a deal. And so I thought it may be good to walk through an illustration of how that can play out over time. So the example I want to paint is a 30-year-old couple that's kind of in the position where they've started to make good money and they're looking for additional ways to save. They say, we're going to fund our Roth IRAs. So husband and wife both fully fund $7,000 into a Roth IRA, $14,000 total. And they do that every year until 65. So what does that look like over time? If we assume an 8% rate of return on that money, by the time they turn 65, it will have grown to $2.4 million. That's totally tax-free at that point in time. Now, of that, $1.9 million is growth. So a pretty significant portion of the overall account value at that point in time is growth. Now, the alternative would have been they save and invest that money in a taxable investment account where they would have been subject to capital gains rates. Most people that we work with right now, they're in the 18.8% long-term capital gains rate when you factor in the net investment income tax. So that would be a tax bill of $357,000 if they were to sell that investment and pay the long-term capital gains and the net investment income tax. If we take that just a little bit further, most people don't turn 65 and liquidate their Roth IRA. They have other investments that they're able to live off of. So if we take that even further and we say they don't touch their Roth IRA for another 10 years, it will have grown to $5.2 million, of which $4.7 million would be growth. Using those same assumptions, that means $883,000 in tax savings just by making the decision to fund their Roth IRAs.
Last thing on that, when you look forward to the next generation and you save up enough of this money, like I plan to in my Roth IRA, it's tax-free for me, tax-free for my spouse, but on the inheritance front, my children inheriting some of this money, tax-free to them. And right now the rules are 10 years that they can keep most of that money inside a Roth IRA, tax-free, growing and compounding. So tax-free Roth IRAs are awesome and excellent.
Now, the last thing I want to touch on, Patrick, is the other question that we often get. I'm in a high tax bracket. Should I consider Roth? So for somebody who is asking that question, what were some things that you would want to bring up, some considerations for those people to think about?
So when you look at, your prime income earning years, say 50 years old, 45 years old, 60 years old, potentially in the top tax bracket, I'd look at your balance sheet and say, where am I going to be in the future? likely continuing to save and grow. There'll be more on the balance sheet. And most of our clients, we find, as they move into working less and retiring, their income doesn't go away. Social Security kicks in, required distributions kick in. There's most folks never a point where their income drops like a rock and they pay no taxes. And when you look at the tax rates right now, at the end of this year, they're going to expire and sunset, be a little bit worse next year. And who knows what happens politically? What happens with our tax rates going forward? Don't know. But unlikely that they're going to be low, likely to be higher. It's some form or fashion going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned earlier about your kids inheriting Roth IRA money, I'd say that's a consideration for people considering Roth who have a lot of pre-tax money already. So a couple of things that I like to look at or walk through. One would be large required distributions. There are clients or potential clients that we work with where they have large retirement accounts, but it's all pre-tax. Mm-hmm. And the reality is there's income that's going to be forced upon those people in different ways. So the first way is when they turn 73 or 75, depending on their age, they're going to be required to take out money. And it's not uncommon for that amount of money to be significantly more than they need, bumping them up into higher tax brackets. Usually, married couple, one spouse outlives the other, and those required distributions don't get any lower, but the surviving spouse finds himself on the single side of the tax bracket pyramid where they're paying a higher rate for the same level of income.
Right.
So that
a lot of
makes
times 10 and 12% higher,
mm-hmm.
the same amount of money.
So
big tax bill.
That makes the tax bill go up. And then ultimately, when the money gets passed down to the next generation, generally speaking, the next generation has to take that money out in 10 years. And a lot of times that's during their prime income earning years where, again, the retirement money can be subject to much higher tax rates than it would have been otherwise. And those would be considerations for, hey, even though I'm making a good income and I'm in a higher tax bracket, would it make sense for me to do Roth instead?
There's a lot of cases where we have multi-generational families. We work with the grandparents, we work with the parents, we work with the kids or grandkids. And when there's a discrepancy in tax bracket, and the grandparents make less money than their kids, and we know that now, it's even more reason to look at this and kind of consider how much should I convert to Roth so that they pay taxes less the rest of their life and so that their kids and grandkids pay less taxes going forward. It's just worth running the numbers and looking at. Rothify.
Patrick, how do you want to wrap up?
Rebalance until rich.
Cheers.
Cheers.